Howdy, I'm Repton and this is Repton Does. Today we're going to revisit that power that we talked about last time just to see what we need to do. We actually made some changes there. We're also going to take a look at our transportation and some changes to our train rails, and then talk about some updates to our guiding principles. We'll also take a quick look at embracing the small with a small aluminum factory that's keeping things moving while we get things further into place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button, and I'd love to hear from you guys as well. Let's get to it. First things first, let's go ahead and grab that drone upgrade. So we've done a little bit of work to have enough aluminum, mostly with portable miners and running bauxite out to our refinery, that we have all the pieces we need to get this. And this is going to become a key factor in our new guiding principles, which we'll share later in this video, based on some things we've seen as how much we're going to have to produce and wanting to keep things moving before we build out a larger factory. So we'll grab this, we'll show what we have for our minimum aluminum factory to keep things moving and how it's going to play into our broader strategy. All right, I also said we were going to take a look at our power situation. So last time, we were looking at, if all machines were running, we would consume more power than we were actually producing. We've since revised the plastic and rubber factory so that we now have double the power output we had before. Kind of gone back where we were before, where we were focused on power production and rubber and plastic as a byproduct a little bit. So we've taken the top floor and made it more focused on power production, and the bottom floor is doing plastic and rubber. We were way overproducing plastic and rubber, so we really didn't need that. That could change over time. Of course, we'll have new power options as we do. So let's take a ride out there. And while we do, I want to talk about our train transportation. We've been using that just to move around some things locally, not really a solid track build. So here I'm showing the old track and the new track with some new blueprints we built. So you can see we had kind of run some double. We were starting to run a track up to our aluminum factory and continuing what I'll call the same mistake, a lot of single track, not really robust to handle our future needs. So with our new plan, we will have a double rail system for the main flow, and then we'll run single line spurs kind of off of that. I was also getting a little frustrated with the floating track everywhere. I'm sitting on foundation, but was not connected to the ground. So these new blueprints do have some pillars underneath, which will extend and grab to the ground. It's a little bit lower and more natural with the terrain, so it's a more scenic ride as well when we're riding the train, which is nice. And I think it fits in with the environment a bit more. So again, double track will be the main flow around most of the map as we continue to expand. And then for our quartz factory, as you can see, here's a single line spur off. We'll loop back around and come back onto the track as necessary. All right, we made it out to the power plant. So real quick, you can see lots of fuel generators up here now, and not the refineries doing rubber production, which is what we ran upstairs. Plastic production was downstairs. We are overclocking a few just to save some space for now. Again, we'll have to continue to think about power production as we go. But this is the new approach out here. We're refining plastic and rubber and brought that more in line with our actual needs, and then truly producing fuel and running many more fuel generators, which has effectively doubled our power output. Like I said, you can see some of these are overclocked just to save space. We could continue to do that and shrink this footprint if we needed to, though I suspect, again, we'll have to add more power. That said, we do have nuclear as an option, and at some point we will explore that. We could look at turbo fuel as well instead of just regular fuel or diluted fuel. We'll just have to see how that plays out. But for now, this is the power plant. We do have, like I said, rubber and plastic production down below, and we'll swing down there and take a quick look at how much we had to reduce. Just like I said, we were massively overproducing it. So here we are downstairs looking at rubber and plastic production. Yeah, so, one or two refineries on rubber, everybody else is on plastic. So most of our needs is for plastic. We have a slight need for rubber. And then this is more than enough for now. We can expand as we need to. This is also a look at sort of our minimum aluminum production right now. So we have a drone port that can fly what we produce out of here. So in this case, we're going to fly it back to sort of our main base. We can also fly bauxite in from a small production plant up near our aluminum area there. So then we'll fly down, drop the bauxite off. We'll process that into aluminum ingots and then fly that back to our main base, and then turn that into casings and alclad aluminum sheets as necessary. So this is self-sustaining, so it's got a couple of refineries that are producing the silica and taking in bauxite and water, producing the alumina solution and silica. We're taking off one of our fuel generators to produce fuel for our drones, come into that second refinery where we're turning that into aluminum scrap. Of course, the byproduct of water, which we can feed right back around into our two original machines. Here we're making those aluminum ingots and filling it in to our drone station here, which is going to fly those back. Again, one machine off to bring in some fuel for the two drone ports to keep them filled up. Eventually, again, as we expand our principles here, I think we will create a battery factory. We'll probably use drones to supply the necessary materials to produce the batteries, but that'll be more efficient, and we'll bring in more drone ports and kind of have a hub and spoke approach to that. So yeah, this is our part of our minimum aluminum strategy until we get that more robust aluminum factory built, which is certainly on the list. Okay, so we've cleaned up the old rail and we just have our new double rail system that is going to be the backbone of our transportation and logistics as we continue to build out and as we have much higher needs, and are going to need to move some products around and even change the way we approach factories. I think this is going to be a much better situation, and you can already see much cleaner, much better ride, fits more in with the terrain. So I think this is going to be really good going forward. Again, come off on that single line spur and can come hit our quartz factory as necessary. So no issues there. We can do in and out. We're starting to experiment with running multiple trains along this track just to see how that's going to play out. But yeah, I think this is going to work out well. And coming into our power plant and plastic and rubber factory, I guess we can call it our aluminum factory now with the little minimum aluminum setup we have downstairs. But overall, just much better round for the train. We do have to finish fixing for our other factories, but I want to get into some refinements and updates to our guiding principles and see how that's going to change things overall. So just a quick look at our power situation now that we addressed the train track problem. It's nice and consistent. So yeah, I think this is going to serve us well into the next couple of major strides, and certainly our new strategies around embracing the minimum and how we're going to adjust our guiding principles will work well with, I believe. Interesting problem here, right? Coming up, I'm on a dual track system, but something is causing me to stop. So could be a train is sitting on this side waiting, but that does not appear to be the case. So in fact, the train is coming along on the other track. You can see it right there, down towards the main base. There you go. It just came out of that resource node. So it's moving in this direction. So it's on the other track. It should not be causing me to wait. So we'll have to take a look at what the issue is there. All right, here comes that other train. See the headlights there. So it's moving along the track now. It is going to have to stop because I'm sitting in a train that's across the track that it needs to travel. So we're just sort of both stuck here, which shouldn't be in the case with a dual track system and some signals here. So we want to take a look and see, are we missing a signal, or is there a problem with the blocks we have set up? So this is part of the sort of whole troubleshooting a train rail system. So let's take a look at our actual blocks. So this intersection might be the cause of the issue. So it's crossing that track, so it's kind of making this all one big block, right? So you see it's all the same color, meaning it's all part of one block. So with those block signals in place, if anybody is on this yellow section, it would be blocking. So if we put some signals around this intersection to separate it from, you know, that piece where we're crossing the tracks, we should get multiple sections, right? So you can already start to see that we've got yellow coming on that one track, and then it's green. So we need to get block signals on the other side. I can't seem to get it to line up with that other one, so yeah, we'll put that one and we'll move this one back. I don't know. Not necessary, you don't have to have them lined up, but I just like it that way. So now we need to get them over here. Now that's interesting. Those two should not both be purple like that. That means we still have an issue. So it has separated the other tracks, it has separated this block section, and separated the tracks coming in, but we still have a solid block on those two tracks together going the other direction. So see, here we have that green and yellow, but we should not have the same color on both of those tracks coming back this direction. So there's still a problem that we're going to have to troubleshoot further. So let's dig into the troubleshooting here. So let's put down some block signals and see where this starts to actually make a difference with this block section. So if we put a block back here, let's see if we can get that red to not be on both sides, because we clearly have green and purple coming in. We have our intersection, which is yellow, so those are all different blocks, which is perfect. We should not have, clearly we'll have to address that side spur at some point, but we're not using that, we're just using that, we're laying that track. So let's see, yeah, so we lay a block there, we get green, we still have double red on the other side, so something is connecting these two tracks together. Let's see if we can find out where that is. So we'll put another block here. Nope, that's separated, so that still seems to be good. Let's go across this curve and put another one. And it didn't. It separated on the other side, but back here we have two red. So something is causing these two tracks to think that they're connected. I don't think they're touching anywhere, but they do get pretty close in this turn. So you can see we have green, we've got orange on the other side, but it's causing red on both sides here. So it's definitely in this curve. You can definitely see they get very, very close there. I guess that's close enough that would cause them to think that they are part of the same track. So let's clean that up. So we've cleaned up the rails and made sure that they're further apart, and you can see that solved the problem. We don't need any of these other block signals. We've got red on one side, the green color on the other side. The trains can run just fine, no longer blocking just because anybody is on our dual line track, which would defeat the whole purpose, right, and would make it completely useless. We might as well have a single line here. So we'll throw down a train, get it running, so we have two trains again running both directions, potentially taking advantage of our track. We'll send you through our crystal or quartz factory and then back to the main base. So these two trains will have to run past each other, and we'll just verify that that all of this is working the way it's supposed to. Now while we're here at the quartz factory, I want to go over and fix this curve a little bit. It's real jerky as you come out of this, right? It's curve, straight curve, and that was as we placed down this couple of pieces of foundation. But we don't need that middle piece, so we're just going to take that out. We'll remove these two pieces and then connect it all at once, which will make a smoother ride in and out of this factory. Not a huge deal. I'm not riding the train over here all that often, but when you do, man, it could start to make you sick as it jerks you back and forth. It's more of a roller coaster than than a train ride. So we'll hop on. Yeah, much better. Nice and smooth in and out. This one's a little sharp, but it's the nature of where our entrance and exit is. And now we're back on our line, headed towards the main factory. And I believe our other train is coming the other direction. It's not going to be up here on this line in time, but we will actually get to go past it and see things are operating the way they're supposed to. You know, these signals giving me the green light to come through here, which is perfect. Right, here we go. We're going to come right by our train. That's perfect. So this dual line train is now, or dual line track is now working the way it's supposed to. So we've talked through power and our adjustments there, what we did with plastic and rubber. We've looked at our mini aluminum factory and how we've, well, I won't call it a factory, how we've changed our train transportation. And I've realized a couple of things as we started with those early guiding principles that we need to evolve that. So I want to take a little tour around, look at kind of how things are and what we see and learn from that situation. So we can see steel pipe and plates moving, plastic running really fast, rubber slightly, quick wire, concrete, cable, wire, copper sheets moving well, screws, which used to be a major problem, hardly any demand at all for, iron plates, iron rods, some for encased beams, some for rotors, crystal oscillators, casing, of course quartz crystal. We don't have a need for supercomputers at the moment, but we're building them. High-speed connectors when we make ammo. Adaptive control units, not much. Automated wiring, some as we build electronics. Computers, modular frames. So we have kind of the storage area. We have this large vertical bus, which we're ultimately bringing product in with trains where we need to, some with belts, and then bringing it through, sorting it into some storage containers, and then raising it up onto our vertical bus. And then we have our machines surrounding this vertical bus and ultimately building everything we need. It works fairly well, but as things change, this is a little tougher to adapt. And we've got our bigger equipment inside in the center. As you see, we only have room for 2 rows. We can certainly continue to go up vertically. And then we bring everything underneath the floor, ultimately to sort, bring back around. I do like this style mall where everything is right here that I can reach on the floor, put a few signs. You've obviously got some visual representation with products, but it's a little tough when you start thinking about what all we're going to need in the future. And our original plan was, you know, hey, let's build factories that process things close to the node that they're working on. So we have a copper factory over there, kind of across from our space elevator. We have another one back into the left, and as I've needed more wire than copper sheets, I've been tweaking that. We have a concrete factory close by on a limestone node, and then as well there's one sort of under this factory. We built our steel factory. You may remember that from this video. And we also have our Caterium and another copper sheet to make some electronics over here. Not a factory yet. We started to put down some foundations to lay out what that might be, but ultimately it's not really ready. Now the challenge is when things change, these factories kind of have everything in them. They have smelters, constructors, assemblers, whatever is necessary to make the product. And so that means if I need more, I either got to find another node, belt it in, add kind of everything, all the pieces, not just expand a production line. I have to do all of the initial processing as well. So it's difficult to expand a particular factory. Now you could argue, well, you don't do that. You just put another factory wherever another resource node is, and then it does that work. That's going to lead to lots of small factories with difficult to manage, difficult to tweak. If I needed more wire than copper sheets, I might have to run around to lots of places. Not really practical in the long run, I don't think. So with that in mind, you know, I think we're going to want to look at updating those guiding principles and maybe talking about why we want to update those guiding principles. So I've started trying to keep some notes for this season, particularly from the guiding principles perspective. So we started with those 3. The main factory is the brain. It's where we store and manage resources. Satellite factories. Just make this so you guys can see. Satellite factories are specialists. They'll build things close to the resource node, and distance dictates transport. For distance under 200 meters, belts are fine, but after that, it's train time. So, a couple of problems with this. One, our main factory, difficult to expand, especially if we have to change things about that vertical bus. The satellite factories, not difficult to expand within themselves. You could overclock, you could do some things, but if you need real growth, you have to grow everything about the production line. You can't just, bring something more in and build more of it. You have to build more smelters. You have to build more constructors. So, and you have to do that in many places. So you might have to go to 10 factories to manage that. And then 200 meters for trains is probably a little bit too short. So we're going to revise that. Probably be more like 500 meters, though. Anything between 2 and 5, I think, is still on the table. So as we think about the potential issues, belt congestion, we definitely have that, especially when something's not being consumed. Things get combined and they can overwhelm the speed of our belts. Scalability, like I talked about, and that 200 miles being too short. So if we think about transportation modes, conveyor belts, great for short range, continuous flow, no power, which is key, but they can become cluttered and hard to modify. And in my opinion, they really don't look great, especially across the landscape. Trains, great for long distance bulk transport. I'm not really getting the bulk part of that out. Getting some distance, especially with my plastic and rubber factory, but requires infrastructure. So we had to go back and rebuild all of our tracks to get that double track. So when you're thinking about laying out your world, definitely be thinking about what that infrastructure is going to look like, and do I need to have a double track system? Am I really going to rely on trains? Now, I don't use trucks at all at the moment. I think if I went back, I would adjust this and use them a little bit more in the medium distance. The reason I haven't is because of the fuel requirement. I think in a future playthrough, I probably will use them. I might still use them here. And then drones, definitely starting to experiment with those, because you can't really run them in a route per se. Do see the need for sort of a drone hub where I'm bringing things in from places, shifting where it needs to go out to, and then flying it out. I think this is going to be key as we look at what we want to do from a sort of getting things started when there might be low demand for aluminum is a good example, right? We need it right now, but the demand is low. The final factory is going to have some complexity with bauxite and having to bring other things. So I think we want to embrace the small and even some manual movement like we have now. So we have a combination of some machines and drones that are bringing pieces to the right places so that we can process and ultimately get those aluminum ingots, get the casings that we need, and the all-clad aluminum sheets. So that, I think, sort of flows into where we want to go now. And that is, still a notion of a main factory, though it might be more about the complex final assembly and less about some of these intermediate processing steps, and certainly not refining and smelting. And then maybe regional processing hubs, so iron and copper might be steel, aluminum, quartz and silica. Those could all, it's not that I just have one of those, but I might have one kind of regionally north, south, east, west to handle workloads and potential expansion. Train, again, we're going to look at maybe slightly longer, 500 meters. It's not going to be a hard and fast rule. Always have to be over 500. Anything over 200, we'll consider it, especially if we already have our transportation routes running along that direction. Drones, small volume, high priority items, could be quick wire circuit boards, though those grow. Definitely when we get into an early phase and we need something but we haven't built the factory yet. So we'll use drones to get things started while we're laying out, planning potential infrastructure that we got to get trains there or trucks or whatever, and then ultimately build that factory. Belts, certainly within our hubs and factories, possibly shorter distances. And then, of course, I use buffer storage now, but we'll continue that idea. Staging and incremental expansion, I talked about this a little bit. So start small, right? If I need some aluminum, but I don't have high demand for it yet, I know I'm going to, so I know I'm going to need that factory. But for now, I could use drones and I could fly bauxite around and move it to where it's convenient for me to get to ingots and actually have things being built, so I can continue with some of the tiers and work towards those phase requirements while I'm building out factories. Factory layout, satellite factories near resource nodes, less important with this idea, but definitely got to have room for future upgrades and be able to expand the production line, because I'm not having to do some of that early refining or processing. And then dedicated factories for plates, rods, screws, whatever the thing is, so that if I need more plates, I go to the plate factory, perhaps again regionally, and expand that, and then move things with trains or drones or trucks, depending on distance. And then finally, scalability and expansion, right? Leave room for new production lines. So don't build a factory like I have now, most of them except for my main main factory, where they're encased. And, to expand them out, I'd have to rip that down, build a bunch of foundation, expand it further, and then wrap it around with, whatever new outside layers I want. And then transport hubs, I think this is really going to be key. So building out that train hub where I have resources coming in, and then dedicated trains to take resources to particular factories to do that final work. And then really one of the things that kind of brought this to my attention as I looked at some of the next things like this, the assembly director system that I have to build 1,000 of, if I'm just building 10 a minute, right, just 10 a minute, not really going overboard, so it would take a good while to get to the 1,000. Look at the iron requirements, 5,250 a minute. So in my current approach, I'd have to have these iron factories all over the place. So I think it's going to be far better to have a huge smelting operation, and then distributing that where I need to get some of it to steel, which a huge amount, some of it for iron plates and iron rods, again, huge amounts, but I could have big factories that are doing that workload, and trains bringing those ingots around, or the iron ore in the case of the steel factory as necessary, as opposed to my steel factory as it is right now is never going to be able to produce that amount. So I'd have to have many other steel factories and work out the logistics of bringing together those pieces and all of those things. And then I have to balance and scale them independent of each other to ultimately get at what I need for, this is just one thing. There are going to be many of these. So I think changing our approach and going with these new set of guiding principles is going to be a better approach. Of course, we'll continue to iterate and look at this, where our current base is. We're not just going to rip that down right away. That might become where our train hub is. It's kind of centrally located in the grass field, so it could be a good spot. We'll just have to wait and see. But this is what I'm thinking as we look forward, especially as we're building out that route towards our aluminum factory. We're not just going to rip everything down and kind of start over and delay progress. We're going to do some of these smaller things. I think that drone port is probably going to be next, and we'll leverage the idea with batteries, right? I'm going to need some things if I want to switch drones to using batteries instead of fuel, and I'll use the drones to fly them in, have a small production, just enough to produce batteries for my drone, sort of main drone hub, and then we'll fly out from there. Let me know what you guys think about this approach and how we're expanding and factoring in our new guiding principles. Would love to hear from you guys and talk about what you guys have learned as well. And certainly, did you have this sort of realization as you looked at sort of the future things you have to build? And, I would love, if you like these kinds of videos and like to have this kind of conversation around where we're going next and just the design idea, not just always building, although the building is super fun, let me know. And please subscribe and like the content if you're enjoying the video series so far. We've got some more blueprints coming up in a new series. We're going to look at sort of compact stackable blueprints that'll allow you to go either wide or up depending on your needs for that factory. And then of course we're going to start to put these new set of guiding principles into place. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring. Thank you.